Welcome back. First things first, Undisputed is coming up in about 12 minutes. Good morning, Joy. What do you guys have on the table for today?
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, guys. Coming up on Undisputed, the new Cavs looked a lot like the old Cavs last night. We'll discuss that, and can Russell Westbrook and the Thunder challenge the Warriors? Plus, Eddie House and Rob Parker are in studio with us. Undisputed is coming up next. Happy Friday. Sarah, back to you guys.
Thank you, Joy. Well, we're sticking with the Cavs. Last night they played their first home game since the big trade deadline acquisitions, and the results weren't exactly ideal, with Cleveland losing to Washington 110-103. LeBron was his usual awesome self, though, scoring 32 points, including 14 in the fourth quarter. However, his new teammates combined for only 29 points. Here's what LeBron had to say after the game.
Like I told you guys, it's still a work in progress with us. It's not going to be overnight, no matter the excitement before the break. We got a lot of things to work on, implement what we need to do. But, tonight we still played to our game. We just didn't make a lot of shots. I think we played well tonight, even though we lost. And there's no, I hate losing, obviously, but I think the way we played, the way we shared the ball, defensively we were flying around as well. And those guys just, they played better than us tonight. So I like the start. I like the direction we're headed in.
Well, Chris, LeBron still seems optimistic, but was everybody too quick to jump back on the Cavs bandwagon?
Well, it sounds like Skip and Shannon may say so on Undisputed following us. But look, you saw LeBron's excitement in that clip even after a loss. I'm with him. I'm still optimistic about these Cavaliers because I wasn't basing my optimism on them after the trade on what they did against Boston or OKC. I was basing it on fit. And we knew their number one problem was defense. They were just too old and too slow. So you added an elite defender at the point of attack in George Hill at point guard. Then you brought in three young athletes who aren't great defenders at this point. Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr. But they have the tools to be. And if they buy into the system defensively, they will improve that team defensively. Last night you didn't really see it. But that's where the adjustment, it's not just learning the offensive sets and schemes. It's learning the defensive rotations, getting used to LeBron and the other guys, and that's where they struggled last night. But I'm not off them at all. I think, Danny, and you said this earlier, it was good that they lost because maybe these young kids haven't won at any big level. Maybe they were believing already in the hype. Hey, we're going to be great. We're going to run through the East. Maybe we can challenge the Warriors. This can humble them and get them working hard on the off days to where they can really fulfill their potential as a team.
I mean, it was impossible and kind of stupid to analyze a team after 2 games, right? I mean, everybody's doing that, but that's the LeBron effect. When he's the focal point, you're going to get the attention. Everybody's going to be either all in or all out. It looks like a disaster. I'm keeping my level of optimism about this team, not because of those 2 games or because, they played pretty well last night, even though they lost, but because of how bad it was before this trade. Before all these moves were made, it was as dysfunctional and as disconnected as the locker room as you could find in the NBA. And for that reason, I look at this team and I see a fresh infusion of fresh faces, and LeBron's got a little, pep in his step, and he's excited to talk about this team, excited about the prospects. But then from a basketball perspective, I see a team that actually is capable of doing some of the things that Ty Lue wants to do when he's talking about pushing the pace, getting more effort on defense, because, like you mentioned, they are younger, they're in a little bit better shape, but there still is a long way to go as far as evaluating how good can this team be when you judge them by the Cavs' expectations, which are, how do they stack up against the Warriors? And as an NBA Finals contender, how do they stack up? It's way too early still to judge them off that.
Here's something I'll say about them. I wouldn't say it's a concern, but I think it's something they need to readjust. They were 8 of 35 last night from three-point range, 22%, and that's a big reason they lost. They shoot too many threes, in my opinion. Now, I know that might sound crazy in today's game, but they're 3rd in the league in three-pointers attempted. They shoot more three-pointers than Golden State, which has far better shooters than the Cavs have. I mean, when I look at the Cavs roster, the only guy I would say was a knockdown shooter is Kyle Korver. Rodney Hood, LeBron James, George Hill, J.R. Smith for certain. They're streaky. They can get hot. They can get on a roll, have a game or two where they just catch fire from 3. But they're not great shooters. JR, again, I can't call him a great shooter if he's so streaky. So I don't think they need to be as dependent on the three ball. I get it. You have to shoot a lot of them. You have to, hit a lot of them to win games. But with the athleticism they have, with Rodney Hood, who can score in other ways, with Jordan Clarkson, who can score in other ways, obviously LeBron James, I don't think they have to be as three-point centric as they have become, not just this year, but last year too. So I'd like to see them not be as dependent on the three ball as they have been.
Here's the problem with trying to shape their game around the three, which is what they are doing, and they have done, is they're trying to contend with maybe the best three-point shooting.
Thank you.
Say it for me. Shooting team that we've ever seen. Yes. They're trying to go toe-to-toe with them that way. Why don't you try to do what you do best and your personnel does best, and then try to knock off the champ that way? I feel like it's going to be a futile attempt if they try to do that, especially if you miss 11 straight the way they finished the game last night. Then you kind of get exposed. So I'd like to see them utilize your talent to the best of its skill set. And if it's not shooting threes, then go for it some other way.
Yeah, you're not going to outshoot Golden State or Houston either.
Right. Right.
You've walked through the new pieces. So Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., George Hill, Rodney Hood. Who's most critical for this group going forward?
That's a great question. I think I would probably say Hill and Hood. I thought Hood actually should have been the starter at two guard. I understand initially they probably didn't want to, upset J.R. Smith and mess with his psyche. And to J.R.'s credit, he's accepted the challenge, and he's played much better since Hood got there. So if he keeps that up, I have no problem with J.R. starting. But George Hill is big because defensively he sets the tone as the point guard, the point of attack. And then he can play well off LeBron by hitting three-pointers. He's a point guard that doesn't need the ball in his hands. And then Hood, especially until Kevin Love gets back, they need that second scorer, and Hood, I think, is the best equipped to do that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The most important piece of this equation, I think, is Kevin Love, and how does he step up to the opportunity of being the number two? Yeah. Being the clear-cut number two, you're the guy that's going to have to step up and make some buckets, and a guy who, in his tenure at Cleveland, has not flourished in that role. And I don't know if he can do it when it matters, when the game's on the line. I don't know if mentally he's got that skill set to step up when the pressure's on and make those buckets.
I think offensively Love will be fine. The question is defensively, because now they have the capability to have some really unique lineups. And they could have Larry Nance Jr. at center, LeBron at the 4, Hood at the 3, JR, George, where you can essentially switch every position and be effective against a team like Golden State. And then there are other lineups, Tristan and Jetty Osman, other guys they can throw in. Love will bring it offensively with the threes and then posting occasionally, but defensively he's going to be a liability, and Golden State's going to pick him out. Whoever he's guarding, they're going to try to go at him, make the switch, and then expose Love. So it'll be interesting on that.
Way to give some love to Jetty Osman.
Jetty,
he's been great. They love him.
I think I said it right. I think I said
Jetty.
I think of the Osman family, the Osman Five, the Osman family.
That's what I said. He's like just a little ball energy, big ball. All right, moving on. Speaking of Lonzo Ball, has been out of the lineup since January 13th with a sprained MCL. Before the injury, he was showing some promising signs, though, averaging 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists over his last 15 games. He is questionable for tonight's game against the Mavericks. Chris, how much pressure is Lonzo facing in this final stretch of the season?
In most situations where you didn't have the family dynamic that he has with LeVar, I don't think there'd be much pressure, because people, look, he's a rookie, he's learning, let him go ahead, he's been improving by the month. But with LeVar and some of the comments that he may make, that creates pressure. And so people will have him in the fishbowl again when he gets back. Also, the Lakers were playing really well without him. And now they've struggled. They've lost their last 3 since Isaiah got there. But, people will look at it with Lonzo back. Did you play as well with him as you did without him? And finally, Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah is confident. He believes he's better than Lonzo. He believes he should be starting either next to Lonzo or instead of Lonzo. He wants to get paid, this summer in free agency. He's going to take shots, shots, not
right.
Verbal shots, although he might take verbal shots as well.
You're right on both.
Yeah, I mean, and then LeVar probably won't just sit there and let Isaiah take verbal shots. So it could really get interesting and test Lonzo's mental fortitude, leadership in the locker room, and ability to handle this all-star player who's brash and comes in and may take your minutes or think he should take your minutes.
The pressure that Lonzo Ball faced throughout this first half of the NBA season is stuff he's used to. He's always been the center of the spotlight. He's always had his dad chirping behind the scenes. He's comfortable in that, and he's shown that he's been able to handle that. But having a player like Isaiah Thomas looking over his shoulder, being pressed by someone that fans might even view as, hey, this is a player who finished fourth in the MVP voting, he might be the better option. And I don't think Isaiah Thomas is just going to go quietly and play this role of mentor. How does Lonzo respond to all of this? I think it'll be the most pressure-packed second half of a season that Lonzo's ever faced.
How specifically on the floor, what does he need to improve? We talk about his shooting so much, but is there anything else that you need to see out of him?
Defensively, he's not that bad. Now, he's not a lockdown defender, but he's intelligent. He's got instincts. He can get deflections and things like that. So one person on their staff told me a few months ago he might be their best defender, believe it or not. So obviously, he's got to work on the mid-range shot. That hopefully will come in the offseason. But three-point shot, he's been better as time has gone on. I want to see him get more aggressive. And every night, every game, you have to force the action. Even when you watched him at UCLA, he wasn't all that aggressive. He kind of let the game come to him. I want to see him force the tempo, force the action, because he's a great passer with great vision, and he can create for his teammates.
Bring some energy, man. Like, bring it. Act like you care. Act like you're invested. Act like an assassin. Do something to kind of generate some excitement around your team. You are the focal point of it. And I'd apply it to his rap game, too. Like, bring me some more.
You can't be too back.
Yeah.
I got to check out his mixtape.
Back on Monday morning, 6:30 Eastern. Undisputed starts now.